Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you found me through this collab, my name is Vanessa and I teach 2nd grade in Southern California. So I'm participating in this collab that is to show you how to be a teacher basically, and some of the topics that are going to be discussed in this collab are going to be like how to set up your classroom, how to create lesson plans, how to manage misbehavior in the classroom, so many different things. So I'm going to link everyone's video down below that is participating in this collab, and I'll just have like a little title of what their video is about, so if you want to go and click on any of them, feel free. And if you found me through this collab, welcome to my channel. I do basically like a teacher lifestyle channel. I pretty much post videos about anything that I'm interested in, and I daily vlog every day. So I'm going to be talking about my process to become a teacher and get my teacher credential. So I'm just really quickly, it's not going to be quick, let's be real. I'm going to really quickly walk you through the steps that I took to become a teacher. Keep in mind that I did get my credential in California and I teach in California. So I know that the US, every state is a little bit different, but if your state is like way different or there's different tests or something, maybe you can leave a comment down below with some differences, and then people can we can start like a conversation down there, and then people can kind of go and see different things maybe with their state, and then you can help me out. I don't know. Right out of high school, I attended community college for a year, and while I was there, I pretty much did like prerequisites to get into a degree program, just basic classes, and then I went on to a 4-year university. I attended California Baptist University in Riverside, California, and I studied the liberal studies degree. Liberal studies is basically I like to say it like hits the surface of every subject, but you don't really dig deep into any subject. I don't really know what else you would use a liberal studies degree for in terms of careers, but it is a perfect segue to become a teacher because you kind of get a little bit of knowledge in every area. So I know a lot of states do an elementary education degree. California in particular does not, but the liberal studies degree I'm sure is like probably very similar to that. So I had to pick a concentration, and I chose to do my concentration in early child development, and that was just something that I was interested in, and I felt like it was something that would probably be useful for my future career, because I knew that I wanted to teach the little guys. I was able to finish my undergrad in 3 years. I graduated and then looked into credential programs. I decided to leave the university that I was at, and I know that there's programs where you can do like a blended and then you get your credential and your bachelor's at the same time. I chose not to go down that route, and I chose just to do my bachelor's and then move on to my credential. Once you find a job, you actually do get paid more. You're higher on the pay scale if you did it separately, because I do have more credits than someone who just did it at both, because basically your concentration would be your credential, so you would miss out. I just realized that I turned on the washer, and this is the 3rd time I filmed this video, so if you can hear the washer in the background, I do apologize, but I'm not gonna stop again. I just need to get this done. So anyway, so basically you wouldn't have had the units that you earned through a concentration. You would have just had your credential, and I guess like you don't get units. I don't even know how it works necessarily, but I ended up with more credits than someone who didn't have a credential. So once I graduated with my undergrad, I then applied to graduate programs. I didn't actually get my master's or anything, but you do apply to the university as if you were a graduate student, at least the university that I went to. So I went to a private school for my undergrad, and I went to a public state school for my credential. So I went to Cal State San Bernardino for my credential, and I know all the Cal States, I think, run pretty much the same. So I applied for the graduate program to get my credential, and it was a year-long program. It was 3 quarters, so 1 school year, and then during that time, it is 3 quarters, so you spend 1 quarter teaching, or it is 3 quarters, so you spend 1 quarter just in the classroom, like, sorry, not in a classroom, but in the classroom as a student, just learning like a regular college student. And then your 2nd and 3rd quarter you spend student teaching, and then you take classes at night. So your 1st quarter, I did classes that were basically just teaching you how to be a teacher. A lot of them are like pedagogy classes, like how to teach math, how to teach science, how to teach reading, so on and so forth. So let me rewind a little bit. Before getting into the program, the only requirement that I had were certain classes, which my degree luckily took care of all those classes. I didn't have anything extra. Technically, you could enter the credential program with any degree, but there would probably be prerequisites that you would need to take in order to have all the classes. So with my liberal studies and my early child development concentration, I had all the classes taken care of, thankfully. Other than that, you just need your CBEST test passed in order to enter the program, and then you need to take your CSETs. I would highly recommend taking them before you enter the program and just getting them passed. I do believe once I was in the program, I found out that you could not had them passed, but you had to have them passed by the time you get into student teaching. No, that was something that like wasn't really said. I think it's kind of like one of those things, like they don't want you to go that route, but I think you could if you had to. But I just passed all my tests, all my CSETs before entering the program. The CBEST is a very easy test. It's equivalent to like the high school exit exam, very basic information. And then the CSETs, on the other hand, are 3 tests, and they are very pricey, and they are very difficult. So I struggled a lot. I feel like some people say like they were easy. I didn't think they were easy whatsoever. It's definitely something like you have to study for. You can take all 3 in one day. You don't save any money, I don't think. I decided to take each 3 on separate days. So I would put, I don't know, maybe like 3 weeks in between each test. And I would spend those 3 weeks just studying really, really hard for that test. And they would group subjects. So I think that there was math and science, I think it was English and history, and then the third one was all the extracurriculars. So it was like PE, and then anything extra that would go in that range, like art, stuff like that. So I would highly recommend taking them before, just because they are very, very difficult. And if your university does allow you to enter the program, you still, like, once you're in your classes and stuff, like, you have a lot of work to get done. It's just not something that you want to have to worry about, because people who didn't have them passed by the time student teaching came were unable to student teach. During your credential program, while you're taking your classes, you will do like observations your first quarter, and you will just go into a classroom and kind of observe. You might teach a lesson here and there might be a few things, but for the most part you're just there to observe the teacher and observe like what the students are doing. And so while you're doing that, and while you're doing your student teaching as well, you complete something called a TPA. I know some universities do it a little bit different. I know some schools do an ed TPA, which I believe is just 1, and then it's kind of all 4 put together. I had actually 4 TPAs that I had to complete during my quarters. Each of the TPAs have a different focus, and you do them, like I said, either before you got started. Like we did ours all out of order. I can't even remember the order we did them in at this point, but you have to pass those, and if you don't pass them, then you get a chance to redo them, and then so on and so forth. So while I was student teaching, I got my placement for student teaching in December, and at the school that I attended, you did 2 rounds of student teaching. Each were 10 weeks. You did them in one of them was a K through 3, and then one of them was K through 2. One of them would have to be 3 through 5 or 6. I think it's just 5, because I don't think we can, maybe it is 6 actually. I don't even know. So I did a round in 4th grade, and I did a round in 1st grade, which I think was a good mix. I think it's sad for some people who get like 2nd grade and 3rd grade because they're so close together, but I do think I got a pretty good mix of grades. So while I was student teaching my first round, I started in December, and it was a 10-week thing. So I did like 2 weeks, I think, before, or maybe even 1 before Christmas time. And then when I got back, I finished that up. While I was student teaching that round, I ended up failing one of my TPAs. And it's something that I want to talk about, because I feel like as a teacher, I felt that if I failed one of those, or if I failed one of those tests or something, that I was going to be a bad teacher. And when I failed that TPA the first time, I was pretty upset, but you got a chance to redo it, and you redid it, you turned it back in, paid a bunch more money. Be expected to like spend a whole lot of money when you're in your credential program, because I feel like there was everything I had to pay for. But anyway, so I redid it and I actually failed it the second time. In theory, I should have trashed the whole thing because if they didn't like it the first time, they weren't gonna like what I had to fix. I should have just trashed the whole thing. It was basically, it's like a case study on something. And so they didn't like the idea to begin with. So I should have just trashed it, but I only had like 2 weeks to redo it. It's about a 40-page document and there was just no way I was gonna have the time to redo it. And so I ended up failing it and the second time, and I couldn't student teach my second round and I had to wait until the following fall, which was probably the worst day of my life at this point in my life. I just remember getting into my car because I had gone to my new class and I found out that day that I hadn't passed, and so I had to let the teacher know that I couldn't stay anymore. And I got into my car and I remember just bawling my eyes out. And I share this because I want you guys to realize that it's okay if something like that happens. At that time, I thought it was the end of the world and I like wanted just to give up with being a teacher. And now I look back and it was something that like I grew from, and I'm doing fine. I'm a teacher and I feel like I do pretty well as a teacher, and I don't think that those assessments judge you as the type of teacher you're going to be. Just because you can take a test doesn't mean you're a good teacher. And same with interviews. Just because you can interview well does not necessarily mean that you're a good teacher. I think being in the classroom is such a different experience than anything you can ever assess someone on, rather than just seeing them do it. So if that happens to you, don't give up, just keep going. So since I couldn't student teach, I went ahead and just finished up my classes that quarter, and I just worked like a side job, and I finished all my classes and I finished that TPA. I got it redid it. Why does that not sound right? I redid it, I got it passed, everything was fine, and everything was good. So the only problem that I had, and the main reason I was so upset, was because I couldn't student teach, which meant that I wasn't gonna finish the program in the 3 quarters like it was designed. Now looking back, I'm kind of thankful I didn't, because I would have finished in June, and trying to find a job in California as a teacher in June is pretty hard. So I just kept going. I spent my summer working, and then I finished my credential in December. And once I got finished, then I started my student teaching back up in like September or something, and I did my 10 weeks and finished my credential in December. So once you're done with your credential, I guess you could say, you're not just like handed a credential. I feel like there's a lot of stuff you have to do, which is why another reason that I'm thankful I didn't finish in June, because it's not like I could have like the next day when tried to apply for a job. You have to kind of tie up all your loose ends. You have to, submit paperwork to show that you finished everything. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do, and I just would have been stressed out, and then I would have ended up having to sub anyway that whole school year. So in theory, it wasn't the end of the world and it didn't matter. So that is, I guess one last thing. I just looked down and saw that. So during my program, I had to maintain a B average. I could not get anything less than a B in any of my classes, or I had to redo them. So that was one major thing. Not that the classes were hard. I feel like if you're destined to be a teacher, that kind of stuff isn't that hard. Obviously the professor can make it kind of difficult, but I just feel like if that's what you're destined to do, and if that's what you really truly want to do in life, it's not a hard thing to do, I guess. I don't know if that explains it well enough, but I feel like if it was something that you just weren't meant to do and it wasn't your passion, then it might be difficult for you. But if that's your passion, then it's not going to be hard. Especially with student teaching. Like if that is your passion and that is what you're meant to do in life, student teaching is not going to be hard either. You may, run into roadblocks, but overall it's not going to be a hard experience. It's going to be a really awesome but tiring experience. So the last thing that you have to do, and I did this at some point during my student teaching, I think you just have to have it done by the time that you finish. I think that was like the requirement, is the RECA. And the RECA is basically just a test that shows whether or not, or it asks you questions about how to teach a child how to read. It's basically like a reading assessment, reading instruction, something. Too many acronyms on everything. I don't know what any of these stand for. So the RECA is one of those tests I feel like you either think it's really hard or it's pretty easy. And I think it's just one, as long as you study. My school, one of our classes was actually about like how to teach a child how to read, which was hopefully supposed to prepare you for that assessment. And I felt completely fine going into it. All the assessments were stuff that I didn't really struggle with. It was just the TPAs that I really struggled with. And I think it's just a different way of showing your knowledge, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, that was my experience of how I became a teacher. I actually filmed my hiring process about a month ago, and I just uploaded it last weekend. It's technically today, but when you're watching this, it'll be last weekend. And I'm gonna link that also down below because it's basically a part 2 without even realizing it. It was essentially a part 2 to this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and link that down below, which basically picks up in December where I left off from after I got my credential, and then kind of what I did to get a job. So if you were a person in California trying to get a job or trying to just become a teacher, these videos are probably very helpful because I just wish someone had like walked me through all the steps of what it was gonna take to be a teacher. I felt like I was just having to figure everything out on my way. And I wish someone had kind of given me sort of a roadmap as to like the start to finish to becoming a teacher. So if you're interested in any of the videos in the rest of this collab, make sure you click them down below. I think it would be highly useful if you are trying to become a teacher because they are all, you know, great topics. So don't forget to check those out as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already to see future content. And if you have any video requests, leave them down below. And then don't forget, if you have any different things from your state, leave it in a comment down below, and then you all can go down there and check and see if maybe your state was listed and anyone posted anything different about the way that they went to school. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.